yesterday I had some friends, my friend Jeff Schwartz and some others took me down to the border, and Jeff had made a trip down there. And it was interesting because I had been to the border a number of times throughout my time in Arizona, spent a lot of time in southern Arizona at rodeos, but this was a specific trip to see what the cartels are up to and how things have changed. Now, I will tell you the good news is this: border crossings have dramatically dropped. And I watched these, when I say new sections of the border wall, it is new to us in the last few years, but we went to where there are gaps in the wall where the wall ends heading. We went to Aravaca, if you know that area, and then if you look going east, it ends about 17 miles from Nogales, and eventually they are going to continue that move until until it matches the wall in Nogales. But right now, in this border fence, and it's got natural barriers like these really treacherous mountains, so they're filling in holes. But there is a continuous border wall. They've cut through it in places and had to replace parts of it and other things. But it was a spectacular day where I learned a lot. I've got video of a cell phone video. So, as good as a cell phone can work, cell phone video of cartel lookouts, a couple of them on top of hilltops under trees watching us and apparently waiting for us before they were going to give the all clear, because where they were, it's very strange, not strange, it's very obvious once you see it, that where they sit on these hilltops, they can see for miles into the U.S. So they can see Border Patrol vehicles, they can see private citizens, they can see whoever it is along that border wall, and they can give the all clear to people. We saw right where the border wall ends, and they've got these steel barriers up until the wall is completed. You can see right on the other side, on the Mexican side of the border, where they carry their papers, and they carry their legal paperwork. Many of them are passports from all over the world. Some of them are immigration papers from all over the world. And it's gross, trash and human waste everywhere. And you can see where they tear their papers up right before they get into the U.S. because they're making up new identities. They smash their cell phones. I found 2 or 3 broken cell phones. You could see them literally on the other side of this barrier, 18 inches from the barrier. But the other part of this is the humanitarian groups out there. They call themselves humanitarian groups. They drop water and food off, and it's illegal to destroy it. You can't take it away because it's a First Amendment thing. But is it helpful? And that's the question, is sustaining people. Yesterday, the weather was very nice, but I just looked at the terrain, and the terrain is absolutely treacherous. To make that trek in the middle of the summer, it's life-threatening. We got to the end where we drove the border wall from Aravaca going toward Nogales. We drove the new portions of this border wall all the way until it ends, where we just there's a new contract that was just signed to continue the border wall. A lot of that's going to start in Texas. We don't know where it's going to continue in Arizona. But this is a desolate area in the middle of nowhere. And right around the corner from this humanitarian organizations set up an encampment that's always available, and they replenish water. They've got porta-johns they've hauled out there. They have two tents. I'll post a lot of these pictures online. 2 tents, and inside the tents are more supplies, water and food and diapers and blankets. They have fire pits that are there. They already chopped up firewood for people. They have lights, like a street light, but it's solar, and it lights up around these. They put out milk crates for people to sit on around the campfires. So they believe, and I have a conflicted view of this. I am someone that believes you sustain human life. You don't harm people. You don't just turn your back and say too bad. On the other hand, the cartels, how do these people along this immense border wall? It is a massive expanse that we drove. And they've got these drop areas. They've got these trails off, and it's not just along the wall. They've got trails because they don't walk along the roads. They go onto the trails because the only people crossing now are these criminals. And they walk these trails, and these people know where to drop the food and water. How do they know where the cartels will be bringing people. How do they know where they're going to be sending them once they get on the U.S. side of the border? That's the other question, is how do they know? There are codes on cell phones of this is the trail that we're using, and it's numbers and letters. But how do the humanitarians know? How do they know where to drop these totes full of food? And inside these totes are protein bars and granola bars and applesauce and food packets, and then water. But how do they know where to drop them? And the only way the reason why this is such a question is because it seems like a coordinated effort. Someone has to be telling these organizations where to drop this stuff because this is where they're going to cross. And it was not coincidence that the section of the wall we were at was the section where we saw 3 different water drops, more than that, 4 different water drops, and they were pointing them off in the distance, 3 or 4 different water drops, and we saw 2 lookouts from the cartels that were watching us, keeping an eye on us, waiting for us to leave before they gave the all clear. It was an interesting study. And then to be into these towns and talk to this guy, Tim, that took us around, and he was telling us how dramatically the drops have happened in the numbers. That it used to be last year they were out with his people, and they go out and they watch the watchers. They go up on the American side of these big hills, and they watch from the other side, and they're watching the cartels, and they're looking for people that are crossing, and they're trying to evade detection like the cartel people are. And it was very fascinating. But he said that a couple of years ago, him and his crew found at one encampment, and he showed me where the camp was, 115, 113 people. And then a mile or so down the road, there was this another big area where there was a camp. They found over 150 people in that encampment. Those numbers have dramatically declined to 6 or 8 people at a time. But it's more now. The people that are crossing now are the ones that are the criminals that don't want to be detected. And then he told me the story of, I think it was 64 women and children that had been abandoned by the cartels in this area. And he showed me where this happened. It is a treacherous walk. It is on terrain that is unbelievably difficult to cross. And 64 women and children were told by the cartels, keep moving or we're going to shoot you. And they hadn't eaten in 3 days. So the first thing this guy did was him and his crew of people brought them all the food and snacks they had with them. When they're out there all day long, they bring little things of food with them. They distributed food and water to these people who hadn't had anything, women and children, in 3 days. Those numbers have dramatically reduced. We're not seeing those kinds of numbers. But it was a day that was an eye-opening experience for someone that's been watching this and talking about this for the better part of 20 years. I've been down to the border many times. I'd never been to an area like this. I've been to other areas where are a lot more populated. We went through a border checkpoint. All these things were just eye-opening. So this is going to be a topic that I talk about for a while. I was with a member of the media. Liz was with us, and a guy named John. So there was 4 of us that were down there with this guy Tim, that is the expert. And I'll tell you, it was a day I won't soon forget, because the humanitarian side of me, and I believe that I am, thought, how in the world does anybody? Because as far as you can see, is mountain and horrible terrain on the Mexican side of the border, only for them to cross through the border wall and be sent 16, 18, 20 now, because of the way the expanse of what's happening, 40 miles through this treacherous terrain in the other direction. It is absolutely a terrifying journey. And I am even more convinced that we are not helping people by not stopping this from happening as much as we can. It is treacherous. I got a picture of a memorial, literally 50 yards on the other side of the U.S. border is a red cross that's stuck in the ground as a memorial to someone that died from the elements. It's just terrifying, absolutely terrifying.
Thanks for watching the Mike Broomhead Show. Catch up on Amazing Arizonans, a KTAR News podcast, and click the button in the middle to subscribe.